Hi, I'm MJ. Welcome to the Blogs4Borders video blog burst, August 21st, 2007. And thanks for joining us as we take a whirlwind tour of illegal immigration news across these United States. August 15th marked the one-year anniversary of Sanctuary for America's most infamous illegal alien. Elvira Arellano celebrated 1 year of defying deportation by doing what she does best, holding a press conference to make demands of the country whose laws she's continuously and unrepentantly broken since the first time she illegally crossed our border 10 years ago. Of course, taking responsibility for her actions is the last thing on her mind. It is a trade agreement between countries, only one of which is the United States. I neither invited nor forced her to commit Social Security fraud. Did you? The rules weren't changed after 9/11. It was already illegal both times she crossed the border, long before 9/11. Blame, blame, blame. It's America's fault that she came illegally, worked illegally, committed Social Security fraud. But aside from playing the blame game and staunchly refusing to take responsibility for putting herself and her 8-year-old son in this position, Elvira can't help but tell us, every single time she opens her mouth, what she really thinks of this country, its laws, and its people. No, we have set out to enforce our laws in an effort to maintain the sovereignty of our nation and the rights of its citizens. Talk about contempt for our laws. By Elvira's logic, then, wouldn't Saul's birth certificate also be just something written on a piece of paper? Well, isn't that magnanimous of our illegal invaders? They would have allowed us to protect our borders. Elvira promises to pray for 2 separate groups, her people and this nation. One wonders who her people are. And that's about as clear as it gets. Her country is Mexico, but she's going to stay in America to fight. Deciding to stay in a foreign country, which you entered without permission, to wage a fight. Is it just me? Or does that sound like a clear declaration of war to you too? The victim, Anselmo Chinsabam. The criminal, Alejandro Zoycian, illegal alien from Guatemala. The crimes, vehicular assault, leaving the scene of an accident, and DUI. The story. Zoycian was driving with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 when he struck Chinsabam in a parking lot. The victim became lodged in the left front wheel of the SUV, and Zoycian took off, dragging him for nearly a mile. When he finally stopped out of the car, he dislodged the victim and left him there as he drove off, crashing 2 miles down the road. It's amazing that Chinsabam survived, but imagine his agony. First-degree burns on more than 40% of his body, multiple fractures, and shredded skin, in some areas right down to the muzzle. Judge James Hudson told Zoycian with less regard than he should an injured animal. He then imposed a sentence of 3 1/3 to 10 years, which he described as too lenient because of the limitations of law, and recommended deportation after the sentence is served. Of course, if our government had been doing its job, Zoycian wouldn't have been here to cause such unimaginable pain and anguish, making this crime 100% preventable. The victims, 2 girls, aged 10 and 11. The accused, Sergio Antonio Martinez Garza, 32, an illegal alien from Guatemala. The charges, 2 second-degree felony counts of sexual conduct against a child. The story. Police say that Martinez Garza touched the girls in a private residence in Brewster, New York, and that the attacks were not random. He knew both girls. He remains in Putnam County Jail, ineligible for release because of a detainer placed by federal officials for possible deportation proceedings. He's due to return to Brewster Village Court on September 10th. Evidently, that's a big day for illegals in Brewster. 2 other illegal aliens from Guatemala returned to the same court on the same day for charges of statutory rape with a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. 4 sex crimes, 3 Guatemalan illegals, 1 village in New York, with a total population as of the 2000 census of 2,162. Of course, if our government had been doing its job, Sergio Antonio Martinez Garza, Pedro Sagastume, and Jeremias Perez wouldn't have been able to steal into our country, to steal the innocence of a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old, making this crime 100% preventable. The victims: Tanisha Williams, her husband S.J. Williams, and her 2-year-old son Xavier. The accused: Juan Felix Salinas, 42, an illegal alien from Mexico. The charges: 3 counts of intoxication manslaughter. The story: on the evening of Saturday, August 13th, in the sanctuary city of Houston, the Williams family was returning home from a movie on I-10. Salinas, with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit, was speeding erratically when he slammed into the back of their car, hitting the gas tank. As the Toyota spun out of control, it burst into flames. Drivers of other vehicles attempted to save the family, gathering fire extinguishers and trying to pry the doors open or break the glass. One related that Tanisha repeatedly called out, "Help me," to which he responded, "Ma'am, I'm trying to." But the fire was just too hot, and the family burned to death. The same man who saw the collision happen reports talking to a visibly drunk Salinas at the scene and calling him a liar when he claimed that Williams had pulled out in front of him. Kicker number 1. Salinas returned to Mexico voluntarily 2 years ago, but somehow managed to re-enter illegally across our fortress-like southern border. Kicker number 2. Salinas was currently out on bail from an incident of family violence. And kicker number 3. Adding insult to injury, Salinas had no driver's license, but did have a Texas ID card frequently obtained by illegal aliens. Felinda Williams, Tanisha's mother, said, "He tore a whole family apart." And of course, Salinas bears culpability for getting behind the wheel drunk. But let's not forget our government, shall we? Because if our government had been doing its job, Salinas wouldn't have been here. Tanisha, S.J., and little Xavier wouldn't have burned to death in their own car, and a whole family wouldn't have been torn apart, making this crime, like all crimes committed by illegal aliens, 100% preventable. In last week's Iowa straw poll, Senator John McCain came in 10th out of 11 Republican presidential hopefuls with just 2% of the vote. But we're sure it had nothing to do with his vocal, active, and at times even angry attempts to shove amnesty down the throats of unwilling American citizens. Carlos X. Carrillo, chief agent for the Border Patrol's Laredo sector, told a town hall meeting last week that Border Patrol agents aren't responsible for apprehending illegal aliens and that illegal narcotics are not on their priority list. Just to make sure we've got it straight, he added this: the Border Patrol mission is not to do any of those things. The Border Patrol's mission is to keep the country safe from terrorists and terrorist weapons. He went on to claim that when and if terrorists come into the country, the agents will be ready. Do you suppose he's including any terrorists that might be among the 12, 15, 20, 40 million illegals, depending on whose we don't really have a clue guesstimate you use, that are already here? Oops, shame on me. That would be 11,999,981, etc., post 9/11. A much more comforting figure, don't you think? Remember how the Department of Homeland Security trumpeted just last week about the tough crackdown they were going to make on companies that hire illegals? Well, just 1 week later, in a much quieter fashion, the Bush administration is admitting that their major weapon in such an effort, no-match letters, is virtually useless. The letters sent by the Social Security Administration fall under IRS privacy laws. The Social Security Administration is not even permitted to tell DHS which employers letters, let alone who does. That leaves DHS relying on tips from people who go out of their way to contact them to report employers who are breaking the law. In other words, despite all the recent fiery enforcement rhetoric, it's business as usual at the illegal is okay corral, also known as the Department of Homeland Insecurity. Thanks for clicking in to this week's episode of the Blogs4Borders video blog burst. Our quote of the week is blunt and straightforward, just like we like them. In 1999, U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California gave us this gem. It's a myth that the border can't be enforced. It can be enforced. What she said.